Energy Consortium or IIT Madras becomes a part of the puzzle. Our mandate, as you pointed out, is clearly the Panchamrit. It did not look like Panchamrit a few years back. But really 2015, when India signed up at the Paris Climate and said that we want to very aggressively go after something, this was the first time that we actually started implementing things in the country. And then, of course, the top 5 Panchamrit or top 5 areas which we have taken up as nationally determined contributions. These are, to put it very simply, the Energy Consortium was born to help address these. This is about renewable energy. Everyone knows that renewable energy has been growing in the last few years. There are some doubters on will we hit the 500 gigawatt target or not, right? But so how do we make that kind of thing happen? Then there are those who will say that yes, there will be a lot of renewable energy, but what to do with the emissions that are still coming out? There's still a lot of our energy dependence, which is on things which are combustible and therefore lead to emissions. So will we really reach that 45% by 2030 target, again on a baseline of 2005? So these are very challenging aspects for any business, for any single organization, let alone academia by itself to take on, right? But that's the challenge that we wanted to pick on and say, okay, let's see if we can contribute really towards some of the goals which contribute to what the country has promised on a global level. And then it comes to being able to see through the problem and think of where should we start solving this problem. And obviously it's not easy choice. I don't know if the chart's visible from wherever you are, but this is how the energy mix for India is. On the left hand side is where we get our energy sources from, and on the extreme right is where we use it. We talked of different sectors today. We heavily talked about the residential sector, there's industry, there's agriculture. All of them are listed. All the sectors in India which consume energy or electricity are listed over here. And what you can note for yourself is who's the culprit, who's the bigger culprit. Everyone's a culprit. You can point fingers saying they should do it first, then we will do it. But really, as a nation, we face some fundamental challenges. So they are pointed out here. The order 1 to 5 is mine, but you can pick your own order. Coal dominates our energy mix. 70% was the number that we had some years back. Currently, we are at 50% of our energy mix is coal in the country, maybe 51%. We are still lagging in terms of actual generation. So there's a lot of solar, a lot of wind out there. Where we are lagging is it does not generate round the clock, as you know, because it's not always windy, not always sunny. So we need something else before it becomes a lot more powerful. So greenhouse gas chokehold right now on a national level is coal. Okay, any solutions in that area will help us. Second is energy security. As a nation, we import a lot of crude oil, which ultimately goes and becomes energy sources, whether it's factory, whether it's a car we drive, and there are solutions. There's lots of electric vehicles now that are coming up. They have kind of steadily but progressively increased. Not as much penetration as you would like. At the end of the day, it's still transportation, and if you see in that last column over there, that's one part of the entire thing, right? So, will we let go of energy security, which basically means is tomorrow, if some of the top oil producing companies and nations decide to boycott India, we will be in deep soup. That is what is energy security. Okay, so there is a reason why we are looking at energy options, because it is fundamentally a challenge for us. Then there are some more technically intense things like energy efficiency that we should worry about. A large part of that, by the way, we discussed in the form of HVAC for buildings. Now buildings could be in commercial settings, it could be residential settings. So there's a large emphasis that we are putting on how to be more energy efficient. There are hard to abate sectors, there are hard to electrify sectors. Simply speaking, steel, refinery, cement, all hard to abate sectors. How do we stop using cement in this country? Can you imagine that? If there's a good alternate, which is as good, and our construction is only increasing and is going to increase. You go in any city, you will see a lot of highways being built, a lot of metros being built, a lot of buildings coming up. Tier 2 cities are looking like Tier 1 cities now because of the amount of progress that's happening there. So that's a challenge. There are hard to electrify sectors, and then comes the sustainable choices and see how big they are or how small they are. So that's the challenge that we set to address. And then so how to go about this? Now that if we understand and recognize that this is the problem, so inspiration can sometimes come from very uncanny quarters. So this is a picture I took personally when I was probably in Hyderabad. And I was intrigued that Blue Dart and DHL are flying on the same flight. They are competitors. So why would they doing this? whatever the reason. But if they can do this, if Blue Dart and DHL can fly their cargo on the same plane, there's got to be something that many of us can do, and that's where the consortium kind of idea was born. And over the period of 3 years, what we said is, let's bring people together, again in the context of the Panchamrit and what I said, let's bring people together who are willing to drive collective action. Today we have the most notorious, maybe I don't know if they are represented here, they may not like me saying that, but they are, and to us, being part of the problem is not means for keeping them away from the solutions. What that means is they are also part of the solution. You cannot say oil and gas is the culprit and then not keep them in any dialogue. Then you are not going to solve a lot of problems. We work with Ajay Patil was here. He is on our advisory board representing Cummins. And if we say I want to stop all diesel, that could change Cummins' business plan completely, because that's their business today, right? So these are companies which are signed up because they fundamentally are on board that they are part of the problem and they would like to be part of the solution. Then we are part of national alliances, because it's not sufficient that we're just working with an industry and saying, okay, I'll come up with some research. Does it have economical value? Does it scale? Does it reach the end customer, end user that it should? There are other key stakeholders in this: governments, policymakers, banks. We heard in the previous workshop talks about how there are green debts, there's green equity, mutual funds are being tracked in terms of their ESG ratings. So a lot of finance is going to also follow in this, and ultimately we need to also form our own lobby. So we represent this view not just here, but we took this to the COP meeting last year, and we said that that's the platform that where our voice as a nation, when I say ours, it's not mine or IIT Madras alone. What's this collective voice going to do? It should reflect there, and someone mentioned that BRSR may be better than ESRS, which is used in Europe. So how do you make that happen? So you have to be in these forums and be able to convince and influence folks at that level. So that's what we are trying to do. Having said all of that, this is the reality, right? So this is a picture from Chennai when we did our energy summit last, and again Himanshu was over there and spent most of the time in the hotel because he could not get out. Okay? And why I use this picture is when I was growing up, and I'm not that old, but whenever climate change comes, think of it. What picture comes to your mind? And to my mind, I remember, iceberg is melting. There's a polar bear who is trying to balance on a floating iceberg. And that was how the climate change story was, and it is true. Yes, the poles are seeing a lot of melting, but it's not just very real, it's very near. This is climate change knocking on our doors, not in the Arctics. That's what's created a lot of impact. And this is not just last month's story or Chennai story, and there were other pictures shared in the early morning. So this is one part of how intense the problem is becoming. So energy is not the complete solution, and that's why sustainability is important. It's not just about energy. We need to rally collective action. According to me, some of the most complex and daunting challenges, and climate change is one such. If we want to get all minds, it's not just engineers or scientists, all minds, they should come up for climate change. Food and water security. See, increasingly in the energy world, we take water for granted. We assume that we can use water for anything. But water is a precious resource in this country, and we forget that we may be offsetting that same water when we say, okay, I can use, if you've heard of green hydrogen comes from electrolysis, and it uses electricity and water, and where's that water going to come from, right? So we need to really deeply think about that and think of energy equity, and that kind of is, where I see us as Energy Consortium and broadly School of Sustainability fitting into the broader vision that all of you, are part and shaping together, and we want to see how we can become part of the solution and not part of the problem. I'll end with, what struck me when this is from Infosys campus, and Ravindranath Tagore's quote on, it's not just about the highest education, it's, gives us information, but ultimately how I use that information to drive my life and make it in harmony, in this case with all existence, so nature is important. I think that's most applicable everywhere. One more quote there which nobody can read, but it's from Swami Vivekananda, and I think I'll quote that also. And where Swami Vivekananda said, "Arise, awake, and halt not until the goal is achieved." So I think the goal is clear. You don't need me. Swami Vivekananda has already told this to us. We have picked up the problem of climate change, and happy to participate through the platform that you created a month from today, and happy to see how we can help. Thank you.